Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh from group 2, and we will present about linguistic.
Certainly, here are some examples how we perceive speech. 1. Phonemic discrimination. When discussing between similar phonemes such as B and P, our ability to hear the subtle difference is crucial. For example, we can differentiate between pet and pet based on the initial phoneme. 2. Word recognition. When we hear the word apple, our brain quickly recognizes it as a familiar word with a specific meaning. 3. Sentence comparison. When someone says the black cat is on the roof, we understand the sentence structure and the meaning, recognizing the subject cat, the adjective black, the verb is, and the propositional place on the roof. 4. Contextual clues. In a conversation, if someone says going to take a bite of this juice, we may anticipate that the missing word is apple based on the context. 5. Prosody. Speech is just about words. It also involves the tone, rhythm, and stress pattern used in a spoken language. For example, a rising tone at the end of a sentence can indicate a question. 6. Ambiguity resolution. When faced with sentence like time files in spoken language, for example, a rising tone at the end of a sentence can indicate a question. 6. Ambiguity resolution. When faced with sentence like time files like an arrow, use your knowledge of language and context to understand that files is a verb, not a noun. 7. Speech in noise. We can often understand speech even in noisy environments thanks to your brain's ability to filter out background noise and focus on the speaker voice. This example illustrates how your brain processes spoken language by combining auditory input, linguistic knowledge, and contextual cues to understand and interpret speech. Units of spoken language can be identified at various levels from smaller to large. Here are some common units. 1. Phonemes. These are the smallest unit of sound in a language. Different phonemes can change in the meaning of a word. For example, in English, the P sound in pet and the P sound in pet are distinct phonemes. 2. Morphemes are the smallest meaningful units in language. They can be words or parts of words that carry meaning. For example, and at are morphemes in unhappiness. 3. Words. Words are units of language that carry meaning on their own. For example, cat, dog, and house are individual words. 4. Phrase. Phrase consists of groups of words that convey meaning, but may not constitute a complete sentence. For instance, in the park is a prepositional base. 5. Sentences are composed of words and phrase and form complete thoughts. They are typically marked by punctuation and convey complete ideas. For example, the cat is on the roof. 6. Paragraph. In written or spoken discourse, paragraph group relate sentences to organize and convey information more effectively. 7. Conversational tones in spoken interaction. Conversational tones when speakers take their respective opportunities to speak during a conversation. They can range from short utterance to longer statements. 8. Discourse refers to large units of spoken or written language encompassing converse, story, essay, or any extent of communication that convey a correct message. Identifying and understanding these units is fundamental to both comprehending and producing spoken language.
Using producing feature in processing speech and linguistic, prosody is the study of elements of speech that are not individual phonetic segments, vowels, and consonants, but which are property of syllables and larger unit of speech, including linguistic function such as intonation, stress, and rhythm. Such elements are known as suprasegmental. Prosody may reflect feature of the speaker or the utterance their emotional state, the form of utterance, statement, question, or comment, the presence of irony or sarcasm, emphasis, contrast, and focus. It may reflect elements of language not encoded by grammar, punctuation, or choice of vocabulary. Prosody impacts speech and comprehension of content as it incorporates the suprasegmental involved in the production of the speaking voice, intonation, vocal intensity, speech rate, word gesture, speech rhythm, and pausing appropriately. Prosodic features are composed of different prosodic variables such as tone, length of sound, voice pitch, duration of sound, and volume. Intonation units typically consist of phrases or clauses and average 2 or 3 seconds in length, followed by pauses. That temporal unit mark the speaker's rhythm for composing and presenting ideas. Some anthropologists have argued that from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense that the duration of phonological short-term memory generally coincides with the length of the units of articulation. Although the speaker has choice as to which word to stress, the language itself presents constraints about how the stress can be articulated. All content words typically retrieve some stress, contractive duration, and loudness, and the less new content word in phonological phrase usually retrieves the primary stress in an intonation unit.
For recognizing words, recognition of units of spoken language is a fluid process which can accommodate a fluctuating range of units in the input. What provides stability is is its essential focus on word recognition. Recognizing words in fluent speech is the basis of spoken language comprehension, and the development of automaticity of word recognition is considered to be a critical aspect of both L1 and L2 equations. The two main synchronous tasks of the listener word recognition are identifying words and lexical process and activating knowledge associated with those words and phrases. If you want to understand spoken word recognition, it is important to note that the concept of a word itself is different from spoken and written versions of any language. Word recognition does not always succeed. Of course, spoken language comprehension can usually continue successfully even if all words are not recognized, because the listener can make inference about the meaning of an utterance through other sources of information, including the pragmatic context. Successful listeners must often tolerate ambiguity and wait for later utterance to decide what was intended before, what Dzakiy refers to as the etc. principle, based on Dzakiy, 1999.
Okay, next is about employing phonotactic knowledge. Effective speech recognition involves an automated knowledge of the phonotactic system of a language, that is, knowledge of its allowable sounds and sound patterns, and an acquired sensitivity to the allophonic variations of the prototypes in the system. One of the interesting aspects of auditory decoding is allophonic variation, the alternate pronunciation of a citation form, pure form uttered in isolation, of word or phrase that occur due to context. Allophonic variations, for example, gonna versus going to, are allowed in every language because of efficiency principles in production. The variations are both about through co-articulation processes of assimilations, vowel reduction, and elisions. These changes essentially simplification shorten both production and reception time. In essence, they allow the speakers to be more efficient in production and the listener to be more efficient in perception and processing. Next, the first one about employing phonotactic knowledge is assimilation. Consonant assimilation takes place when the pure sound of the consonant is changed due to phonological context. Assimilation occurs in several forms. The first one is T changes to P before M, B, or P. It's called labilization. For example, basket maker and bassman becomes basket maker and bassman. Second one is D changes to B before M, B, or P. It's still called labialization. For example, bad pain and blood bang becomes bad pain and blood bang. And the third one is N changes to M before M, B, or P. It's called nasalization. For example, common market and convent becomes common market and comment. And there are still many several forms from assimilation or course, which is 9 several forms from assimilation. This one is a picture of organ of speech. You can see it. Number 1 is labial, number 2 is labiodental, and number 3 is dental and interdental. Number 4 is alveolar, number 5 is postalveolar, and number 6 is palatal, number 7 is velar, number 8 is uvula, and number 9 is pharyngeal. And maybe you can get this subject more deeply in Introduction to Linguistic. Next is about, the second one is about cluster reduction and dropping. When two or more consonants, often of a similar nature, come together, there is a tendency in English to simplify such a cluster by eliding one of them. The longer the cluster, the greater the chance of elision. For example, word or the combination is asked, no elision is asked, and elision is asked without key. And the third one is about vowel changes. Vowel reduction refers to various changes in the acoustic quality of vowels, which is related to changes in stress, sonority, duration, loudness, articulation, or position in the word, and which is perceived as weakening. Example of reduced vowels. Number one is carrot, the vowel is the O, and the number two is idiot, the vowel is O, still the O, and the number three is Muhammad, the vowel is the E, and the last one is Connecticut, the vowel is the U, and the fourth is elision. Elision is another type of assimilation. It is specifically the omission of one or more sounds, such as a vowel, a consonant, or a whole syllable in a word or phrase, producing a result that is easier for the speaker to pronounce. Sometimes sounds may also be elided for euphonic effect. And elision is normally automatic and unintentional, but it may be deliberate. And last, from employing phonotactic knowledge, is syntactic parsing. Parsing is a processing speech starts with successful chunking of sound into phonological groups, followed by word recognition. A more automated and more precise processing of the auditory input is possible if the listener can map incoming speech onto a grammatical model of the language. As with phonological parsing, these two phases take place simultaneously. The first pass involves a broader time frame, typically 6 to 8. The second span of 2 to 3 pause units, while the second pass involves a more constrained time frame, typically just the 2 or 3 seconds of a single pause unit.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I will explain about the utilizing syntactic parsing. As words in speech are recognized, processing the language for meaning requires a practical syntactic mapping of incoming speech into grammatical model. A number of syntactic and morphological word form cues influence how the listener progress meaning, word order, subject verb, like the topic or the comment. Matching pro from agreement, chase inflection, and contractive stress. The listener grammatical knowledge and ability to utilize that knowledge in real time is called on during syntactic processing. Syntactic processing occurs at two levels, that of the immediate utterance of sentence level and that of the extended text of the course level. There is some evidence that syntactic processing takes place in two phases. For fluent listener, syntactic processing at the utterance level is typical noticed only when a normal occurs. Perception a synthetic anomaly produces a characteristic disturbance in a listener that has been called the P900 effect, in which electrical activity. And also I will explain about the integrating nonverbal cues into linguistic processing. A large body of research has demonstrated that listening involves integration of verbal and nonverbal cues. As a neutral unfold listener take advantage of both linguistic and extra-linguistic information to arrive at interpretation more quickly than they could using the spoken language alone. For instance, listener has been shown to use visual information about the scene, the goal and the perspective of their partner, and spatial concentration about how objects in the world can be manipulated. During language understanding, all of which serve to restrict the set of potential implementation that need to be considered. Similarly, information from different level of processing, such as phonology and prosody, syntax, semantic, along with real-world reference, can be combined by listener to constrain the set of potential interpretation that are explored. Visual signal must be considered as co-text, an integral part of the input which the listener is able to use for interpretation. Visual signal are two basic types, exoporic and kinetic. Directional gaze in eye movement and focus use the direct the listener or audience to an exoporic reference to identify particular moment in the discourse as relevant in some way to the listeners. Okay, I guess that's all I can say. Thanks. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.